Welcome. This video is meant to be kind of a simple walkthrough of how I kind of think and make decisions as a high-level jungler. This game, most people in the game are Platinum or Diamond. Almost everyone finished Diamond last season. And so I picked this game just because it's not a game where I feel like I make perfect decisions, but I think it's a game where I make some interesting ones. It's a relatively short game, only 20 minutes, but there'll be things that I do that will kind of talk about why it was probably a bad idea, and there'll be things that I'll do that I think are a little bit crafty that we'll talk about why I made that decision and like what I'm thinking about and what I'm weighing. As far as the game itself, you can see the champions laid out here at the bottom. We're obviously watching a replay and not the live version, but I'll try and move my camera how I would have and show you information that I'm kind of looking at as I was playing. But we have Gangplank into Malphite. Gangplank doesn't really help you too much on the ganks. Malphite's a little immobile pre-6, but he's pretty tanky, and I don't feel like we really have great damage to take him down, so I'm going to be a little strict on ganks that I go for on that lane. Ziggs has some okay help, but not the best, but Seraphine's a little immobile, so I can hit her with ease, which is quite nice. Maokai is really good gank support, but the fact that his W is going to give you a headache trying to dodge, because it's impossible. But Morgana's Black Shield can really help negate that and make that so much harder. Jin's also pretty good help, and he's pretty dangerous when fed. And then Graves obviously does decent damage. He's a pretty good duelist. For the most part, you kind of just want to avoid him, just like against any other jungler with Zac. He doesn't really duel well early, especially. Now you'll see me start off to clear. Got a nice leash, the sapling, quite helpful. You'll see me full clear. That's a lot of the times what you do on Zac, just because you're not looking to do anything too crazy. You don't duel super well, so you're kind of just working your way up to your higher levels so you can get those better ganks. For me, you can do stuff with Zac's level 3, and it's good. A lot of people like to wait till his level 4, and it's nice that it adds a bit more range to your E. But I think you definitely still have options with level 3. As you can see, I think just the little things I do with the camps help speed it up a little bit. You'll see me walk away from a lot of camps as they bleed out. You'll see it with Raptors here. Also worth noting, while I'm doing Raptors, I'm looking at Ziggs and looking at this lane and saying, is it gankable? I don't think it really is. I think it's a relatively neutral position. Seraphine's a little back. I let my Raptors bleed out with that last W. I open with an E from as far away as possible to start Wolves as soon as possible. And again, as I ping-pong through these camps, I'm just looking at my nearby lanes, ask myself, is it gankable? So I'm like, does this look gankable? And I think to myself, relatively gankable. The problem is Seraphine's going to kind of pull back here. And she looks like she could be backing soon. So I kind of just continue with my blue Grump. I'm also looking at Gangplank, obviously super pushed up. I don't really want to dive that, especially if Graves is on this side. He's much stronger, and that could be a death sentence. Also worth noting, I'll pay a bit of attention to my bot lane, just to know what's going on, how they play naturally, and kind of just try and get a feel for it. I see here that Graves is ganking Gangplank. And I see that I also can't do anything about it. So then I just start my back. I don't have anything to do left top side. There's no way I'm going to really challenge Graves for that scuttle. All I was looking for is if he dove or took too many tower shots, I could potentially kill him. But if not, I just immediately go back starting Krugs. Start with an E just to get as much distance as possible. While I'm doing that, I'm watching these lanes. What are they up to? Bot lane seems to be pushing up relatively consistently. They seem to be doing decently well. You can also see the CSs here. Ziggs doing fine, relatively even lane. Seraphine's been playing a bit dangerously though, which I think is worth noting, and I'll pay more attention to in the future. Krug's decently beefy boy, decently good smite. And that's generally where you'll see me use a lot of smites. It's the camp I smite on the first clear, it's the camp I smite here. 1W kills all the small Krugs. That'll save you a couple seconds. You always want things to bleed out as much as possible, kind of make your way to the next camp if possible. So I'm looking at Ziggs. Ziggs is relatively low, but I feel like Seraphine's going to push up enough because we've been watching her and she's been playing pretty aggressively. And so I don't get the kill, but it's not a big deal because I do still get value out of it with their flash. And also worth noting, because I knew that Graves was taking both scuttles, I kind of needed something to do. Like, I've kind of gotten ahead of my camp timers. So now I have Raptors and Wolves up and I have something to do. So that gank wasn't like the perfect gank, but I didn't have like too much else to do, so I was kind of on borrowed time, and she was close, and I got the flash basically for free. Kill raptors as always, let them bleed out if possible. Now I know that Graves took Scuttle Crab, and Scuttle Crab doesn't actually show you dragon. We can see here, I will show you their vision. They can't actually see into the pit and see anything that's going on, but to me this is like a false sense of security. Because they know that this is warded, they feel safe, but they can't actually see the objective, and I know that. So I think there's a very little chance that they're going to check dragon knowing they have close vision of it, so it becomes very easy for me to pop in the back and then just get a free clean solo. Zach's solo isn't the best in terms of time, it's quite slow, but he can definitely do it, and because when he's lower he heals more, he doesn't really care and he can definitely survive it. That's the reason you'll see that I sit on things like pots, and I sit on the smite a lot. I mean, you obviously want to do that to secure as well, but just when you're low health with Zach, he heals a lot, so. And now I start my back, but I see that Krugs is coming up in 15 seconds, and I'll also have a segue into red soon, so it's nice for me to be able to stay. Whenever I'm just standing around, I back anyway, even though I know that I'm not going to follow through with this back like 99% of the time. If something absurd did happen and Graves like appeared right in front of me, I could finish the back, and then so, like, I always have the option open instead of standing still, which is nice. Now we see bot lane is continuing its long-standing trend of pushing up fairly aggressively. Seraphine's doing her thing of being relatively even in the lane. And then Gangplank's doing his thing of pushing in relatively consistently. I don't have much health, and I'm getting relatively close to 6, so I'm mostly just looking to finish that off and get to 6 finally. Once I get 6, I'm a lot less selective with my ganks, as my ganks are a lot stronger now until I put it on cooldown. But now I see that bot lane's kind of in a good position for me. They've pushed up too far, and we have that pink warded. Malachi does a great job of setting it up with that. I'm just a little late on the E myself, so we don't really sync up. So I will just run back and watch this one more time, because I think it's an important play. So Malachi does a good job. I just don't have the E charged yet. I get my long range Q, and then I'm able to flash and ult her back towards us. And then it's mostly just running from me. Malphite TP's in. I know he's going to try and ult Jhin, so I step away from Jhin. Since I know that they can't see me in this bush, I can get a fully charged E and then kind of utilize it. What I'm looking for here mostly is them to step up and overplay. Once I start charging E, I obviously have the opportunity to, if I want to, just E to tower and be safe. But I sit on the E longer than that, just because potentially if Graves overplays his hand and gets caught in tower, exactly kind of like what happens here, then I can go for the E on him and kind of try and trap him in tower and kill him. Obviously he flashes my E, but I basically kind of just cheated out a free flash because I could have ran away instead. Ziggs throws this, I try and cue him into it, but I'm not fast enough. Then Ziggs comes down to try and clean this up. I'm fairly low, and at this point sitting on decent gold, 1200, so I'm happy just to back. Ziggs is perfectly fine cleaning up that wave, he's safe enough to do it. Those zoning mages are fairly good at being safe under tower, and everyone on their team is quite low. Again, just a quick E out of base. You'll see now that I have budget mage eyes, Dark Seal. I think that's just a good item on Zach because of how little he dies. Also, I think the Balm Cinder is quite solid, gives you a lot of burn. It's the better component of the two to build early. Here I wanted to go for Wolves, but I didn't see that Wolves was up. It didn't show up for me, so then I just did Grump. I wanted to do Wolves first just so I could do Blue and Grump together, but unfortunately I couldn't. Let Grump bleed out. Now I'm noticing for the first time in the game that Malphite's actually pushed up, so that's definitely on my radar. And then the same thing, I'm looking at Ziggs. I probably should have given him this blue buff. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't. I'm kind of just moving on with my own thing. I don't feel like top and mid are gankable, then I just move on to my next camp, and that's Wolves. can see that bot lane had a bit of an issue. Maokai died. Mid lane's also getting pushed in. So I would normally take that CS if it was, because it's largely free to me, but the thing is I just don't want to steal it from Ziggs. I can get all 5 of it, but Ziggs can get a couple of it. Probably we're going to see 3. And I just don't want to tilt him by taking his CS, even though I would get more out of it than he would. I'm perfectly happy just playing my game. I think things are going well. Here I see Morgana clearing that pink. There's nothing I can do because I can't get close enough without her seeing me. I was just trying to hug out of vision, but I wasn't going to really go in. We don't have Maokai there. This is a little lull in the action, but I'm perfectly fine with that because I think we scale pretty well. Gangplank Ziggs are fairly strong. I would say Graves, Seraphine are fairly weak, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how we're doing. This is just a little bit of me orb walking around Krugs. And because I feel like I just saw a Maokai sweep, I feel like I am fully protected down here bot. I can get a free invade on Graves since I know that Graves is topside. And I have the safety to do it like without any real risk. Like we have a ton of pressure and Zach's relatively slippery. Now I'm kind of just looking for Seraphine. Wait for Seraphine to lock into throwing one of these autos. It's a lot easier when people are like stuck doing an animation. So if we watch this in slow motion. So I charge up. As Seraphine lets go of that auto attack, as soon as she starts up that animation, I go in on her, because now for a few more seconds she's not doing that drifty movement, which makes it much easier to hit my E. I still can't hit a great E because I expect her to go back instead of up, so I'm predicting to put more mass behind her. So then what's nice about that is even if she does go, even if I do miss, it means I'm closer to her tower than she is. I can very easily Q her now. I could have also queued the minions, and I probably should have queued the minions. It's a lot easier to queue the minions and auto-attack the person. I'm just worried about her using her Seraphine mobility to just outrun me a little bit. That little speed up can be quite annoying. But I hit this into Q, and then immediately slam her back towards Ziggs once the CC from my Q ends. The other thing you'll notice here that's worth noting, despite the fact that I have this kill down, I just cancel that auto attack so Jhin can have the kill. I'm a tank. I'm largely supportive. If a carry can get it, then I'm happy with a carry getting it. Here the important thing is I use this E and I go far side of him, just because when it hits him now, it'll knock him back a little bit and put him further away from that wall, because we can all tell that he's kind of running towards that wall. And then I do my best to body block him and make his life a little bit harder to get to that wall. You can see his character struggling to get around me, so he can't get close enough to get around that wall fast enough. We'll watch it back all in live time. Here, a lot of times I'll leave towers just because I don't feel like Zach adds a lot of auto attack damage, and I'm just buffing the tower plates. Like, I'm almost making it their life harder. So I feel like it's very nice with Zach to be able to go and do something else, because I don't really contribute tower damage, and I'm adding armor to the tower because the tower gets armor per person around with its tower plating. Here I want to go for Dragon. My problem here is that I didn't realize Dragon was spawning fast enough. I got red in my eyes once I saw that his Raptors were up, because Raptors are Zach's best friend. And so this Dragon is quite ambitious. I felt like we had pressure bot, but that's really just not true because they needed to be catching the wave. And Ziggs is, let's see, Ziggs is not doing super well on mana, and he doesn't have ult, so he doesn't really want to help out. So I probably should have just left it sooner. It didn't seem like the team wanted it, and I don't think it was a great idea just in general. But I do my best to kind of keep an eye on it. Bot lane's kind of fighting down here. It's going a little better than I thought it would, or I would have probably tried and helped more. But I don't have ult, so I don't think I can be that much of a benefactor for it, and I'm largely just looking for my window to go in. With Zach, almost always in these fights, when you haven't actually engaged, you're just looking for some place safe and hidden to E from, and that's exactly what I do. I feel like this smite is pretty high probability because it's really easy to smite with my E. We'll slow this in slower motion, but if he smites before my E will get it. So we'll see here. Dragon's getting low. With my E. And then near an immediate smite. It cost me my life, but it's worth it for the dragon, and Ziggs gets a lot of free time to get that tower, which is super nice for us. Zach's passive, relatively worthless early. There's no way you're really going to come back from anyone focusing you, much less two people focusing you. Now we'll kind of speed it up a bit as we wait for me to respawn. Normal. Gangplank's still pushing up. Seraphine's still playing relatively dangerous. And then I'm going back to doing my normal clear path, which is bot through to top side. I could have probably paid Seraphine a bit more mind. She was playing relatively aggressively. I know that her flash is down. So I'd say that's one of my bigger mistakes. I could have camped Seraphine a bit more. The problem is I just don't know where she is here. And then I get absolutely jumped. I smite red buff for the health. E out. Then they chase, and then I just flash. So we can watch that again now that you guys know it's going to happen. So smite red buff. They don't have any CC left. I'm free to E. He flashes over, then I flash. So I use my least valuable, or my most valuable cooldown last. Then I'm just trying to space as far away from him as possible. Kai'Sa's not really a threat to me. I know where she is. Now I'm kind of just looking for my E re-engage if I see something good. And I feel like I do. I feel like there's no way they can go around here without me catching them. And I still have ult too. So even if I don't get the E hit and I miss out on Aftershock, I can just ult immediately and get Aftershock that way. So I'm going to be really hard to finish off even though I don't have passive. They do a great job of cleaning this up. Here's another kind of mistake on my part. I give Kai'Sa a window out. I don't think I know that she has ult up, but there's no reason for me to kind of give her a way to run away from our team, and she's really smart about it. Now here's another one of my mistakes. I should have sat on E. I feel like no real reason to use it this soon. There's a chance that Jhin catches her or she uses her flash naturally. What just sucks is because I'm using my gap closer first, now she can use hers and flash the wall, and now I can't close again. Whereas if I had just sat on that E indefinitely, eventually Jhin would have gotten another W and potentially could have hit it. She would have had to run around the long way. I could have potentially waited until she got to kind of this lip, and then she can't flash anything as dangerous. It's just I feel like there's no real reason for me to force that E, because now we have no way of catching her again. So that's another one of my mistakes. I think possibly I just thought she didn't have flash ult, because we had just been in a fight, but there's no reason for me to even risk it. They're kind of thirsting for this. I'm a little bit worried they're going to die. Make it out alive. Ziggs does another good job of getting another turret. I should look mid here just because this wave is crashing. I wait a little bit longer than I need to just because if Seraphine pushes up, I can also add a kill to my resume. A lot of what you're trying to do with Zach is pin people under tower. You'll see it later. But I will leave it a surprise as to when and who it happens on. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the game pace right now, so there's no real need to force anything. Team's doing pretty well. Everyone's showing up. Gangplank, who we haven't seen very much of this game, has done a great job with ultimates, and he's just up 40 CS naturally. So all in all, going pretty well for almost everyone on the team. Actually, going pretty well for everyone on the team. Gangplank kind of just won his own lane, but I got to do some stuff to help Ziggs and Maokai out. Yeah, Ziggs just find himself walking through a ward. That'll cost him his life. Ziggs becomes dead. I kind of try and use the lip of this wall to get an E. I don't think Graves is going to push towards me, so I'm not actually doing a good job hiding out of vision, but I was more worried about Graves going up this way and getting away than running towards us, because then he'd have to go through me. I got a good E here, and then using the E airborne, I'm able to land a really easy Q, slam them together. I could have ulted here, but I didn't really feel like I need it. But then here, I'm worried about Graves going over this wall and getting away and this taking forever. So then I do actually use it, but then my fears are realized, and he has the E just in time to get away. Then here, I'm mostly just worried about Graves pulling a loop-de-loop on me and going back up, which is exactly what he tries, as you can see here. If I was reading him walking at normal move speed, he would already be way down closer to around here, but I'm more worried about him kind of staying in this bush, and that's why I still kind of like E largely into the bush. I could have done it even more into the center of the bush. But what's nice is we have Jhin over here to cover, so it wasn't the biggest threat in the world. And that was super nice of them to give me that, but I didn't actually get it because I think it just dies to some bleed out. I'm in perfect position to just take this Herald for free. A lot of how Zac punishes is, I feel like, objectives and stealing jungle camps, just because he takes turrets incredibly slowly. You just got to make sure that if your team needs protection to take turrets, that you're there to keep them safe. Like, a lot of times you're just around turrets because you need to ensure your team that they can't just immediately die, and you're kind of just like a bodyguard. You're not there to hit the turrets yourself, and mostly you're just sitting in the wings. Us juggling this nearly resets it dangerously enough. Definitely something to be cognizant of and avoid. I think about backing because Dragon's 30 seconds off, but I'm kind of happy just staying. I do have a decent amount of gold, but I'm more worried about us just not being there for the fight than us somehow losing the fight, because I feel like we're doing really well. The thing to be most concerned with here is Ziggs. I don't think he's doing anything wrong, but I probably should help him if he's wanting to set up here, which he clearly is. And I'm not doing a very good job of helping them set up vision prior. I should have been on this dragon earlier. Now I'm just kind of like waiting for an E. If they give me an opportunity that I feel like is good enough, I'll go in. If not, Maokai is going to die. So I'm just sitting out of vision here, trying to use the lip of this wall to look for my good engage. Maokai gives me exactly that, as they're perfectly grouped up. They kind of get dispersed a bit, but this is still an absolutely perfect engage. So then, I feel like the other thing worth noting is after my abilities are down, I'm kind of just spacing the fight until my E comes back. And then I know Ziggs can clean this up, and I can just take Dragon. So I go to do the objective while he is able to finish his kill. So I'd say there are two important parts to this fight. Maokai's in trouble, and then it's the natural reaction to kind of just like walk towards him and protect him. But if I walk towards him and protect him, there's so little I can do for him, and potentially it gets me killed. So instead I just sit here waiting for the perfect engage. And if I don't get the perfect engage, then Maokai dies, and it sucks, but at least I didn't die with him. And if I do get the perfect engage, then I'm perfectly set up to be out of vision and come in with a surprise E. And I feel like we have a one team fight, and now I'm forcing them to fight and getting my hard engage. The second thing to look at here is after I go in, I use all my abilities. You can see that I don't have ult, which would usually be what I would have used there. Then I'm just trying to do my best to space. Like, there's nothing I can really offer this team fight anymore, besides like a couple W's, so I'm not fully committing to it really, because someone like a Graves could just kite me around in circles. And then as my E comes up, I hide out of vision so they don't know that I'm here. We'll show this from their perspective really quickly. I'm doing my best of weaving in and out of that bush so they can't see me, and then I disappear again, and they think I'm gone from the fight, but surprise, Zac's never really gone. And then I clean this up. Gangplank does a great job of flashing back in, and then Ziggs does a good job of cleaning this up while I just go pick up Dragon. This also gives us a solid win condition with the fact of we now have 3 dragons. We're 1 away from Mountain Soul. We're also solidly up in gold now. So this game has largely gotten away from them. The last thing I'll kind of talk about is like what you're doing with Zac, and what you're doing with Zac is exactly what we saw late game in that last fight, which is trying to get out of vision as much as possible. You hide, you look for an engage. If they give you an engage, you go for it. If not, you continue chilling and waiting. And then if your engage fails after you try it, you immediately go hide in the wings and then try and E them again. This is exactly what I was talking about with the I wait a little bit extra, just because I need to pick up this farm anyway. But Malphite's got a Sunfire, so I can force him to tank tower, and then he can also be part of my farm. Also, I have Flash, but I never feel like I need it. Obviously, the more valuable the thing, the more you sit on it. If he had forced me to Flash, then I would have. But otherwise, I'm just going to try my best to get him without it. I feel like a lot of times people just Flash just to get the kill faster. But you want to wait for them to force you to use it. And like if they have Flash and they want to waste it first, then you can know and not Flash. That's also super nice. I just come around to use Herald, and then I immediately do my strategy of trying to hide somewhere out of vision. The reason I'm not being more meticulous about it is because I'm fairly confident that Morgana has a ward bot side, and there's nothing I can really do about Wolves being warded. But now I'm going to try and make my way up top side, and I find me a Graves. Terrible E, because he's already snared, but my team does a great job of picking it up. Gale Force, Jhin, and Maokai. Again, here I try and fade out of vision. Make sure to protect Ziggs so he's not dead. Go back to this fight, try and catch out Maokai, but I cannot. Again, try and hide over here. I think it's probably warded, but it's better than sitting in vision. And then go for last engage as they surrender. So relatively simple game. I think the biggest takeaways that I wanted to talk about were the fact that kind of as a jungler, I kind of just work my way linearly. Generally that means Krugs to Raptors to Wolves to Grump, and then at every single camp I'm going, is a lane gankable, and then if it is, I'll go do it, and if not, I'll continue on my normal path. Over the course of the game, I try and learn people's tendencies. I tried to make it known that Gangplank usually pushed up, bot lane usually pushed up, but Seraphine usually was about midway, and Ziggs didn't really push her away, and she was playing relatively aggressively, even when I was able to get her flash. So Seraphine's a lot of where I was able to get those kills because of that. So I'm going Krugs, and I'm looking at bot and mid and being like, are those gankable? And then I'm going Raptors, and I'm looking at mid, and I'm going, is that gankable? And Wolves, and I'm looking at mid and top and saying, is that gankable? And then you can add sneaking objectives and a lot of the more fun things I tried to do that game. You also want to make sure that a lot of your engages as a jungler, the enemy doesn't have a choice. I feel like a lot of people, it's like optional to fight. It's like they're sending a request that's like, do you want to fight me? Yes or no, check one. And I feel like as a jungler, you want there to be absolutely no question. You are going to fight me now, and you're going to die. You don't have to be 100% perfect on your fights that you choose being wins for you. But it's just worth noting that if you ask someone if they want to fight, like, you don't really engage on them, you kind of just walk up to them. If they have extra help, or if there's something you don't know, or there's some ability you think is down that actually isn't, that'll make them win the fight, and they know it is, they'll take the fight and win. So like if I go for a fight on Graves and I don't know about Seraphine, Graves will take the fight because he knows about Seraphine, and then I'll lose. Whereas if I go for a fight on Graves and Graves knows I'll beat him, Graves will just walk away. And to me, those are both losses. So instead, you just want to force Graves to fight regardless, and then maybe Seraphine's there, but at least this way he can't run if she's not. And then so in the late game, you're largely using Fog of War to force those fights, and as soon as they don't work, you're kind of bailing out back to Fog of War to hide. In those team fights, you're kind of trying to do your best to space while your abilities come up, and then you can go in more aggressively once you have your abilities again. So all in all, I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to any questions if someone does have any, but I'll try and get better at this, and I just thought this was a fun game to kind of talk about. I hope you enjoyed. Any feedback, definitely welcome. Have a nice day.